Come.
Ensign Ro has some things she'd like to talk to you about.
Ensign Ro has been confined to her quarters.
Well, she can go back to her quarters when she's done.
Guinan, I don't know why you're involved in this, but...
She's my friend.
Please sit down. Guinan is very selective about whom she calls a friend.
Welcome, everyone, to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. I am one of your hosts, Johnson, and with me is Mike. Hi, Mike. Happy Pride. How are you?
Happy Pride, Johnson. Good. I'm good. How are you today?
I am so tired, but I am here. I'm present. I'm all. You have my full attention.
All right.
My laptop, my work laptop, is open. But you have a full attention.
All right. Well, happy Pride to you. It is June, and here we are.
It's June 2nd, 7:20 p.m. Eastern time.
For all of those
for all of you that want to know, like, what time it is. How are you doing today, Mike? How was your day?
It sizably better than Tuesday. I felt like Tuesday was a tornado.
I mean, you came back from being away 4 days. What do you want?
I know. I just was not. I saw this really cute meme online that said something to the effect of, you gave us Monday off, but really when we needed Tuesday off as well. We should have.
That's true. I could have taken Tuesday off, or I could have used Tuesday off.
Yeah. Tuesday was a little rough, but Wednesday is a little bit smoother, and some things got done today that I'm
good,
like off my plate done type thing. So super happy about that, and and it's Pride Month, and
it is.
Yeah, I'm excited. We talked this morning about something we're gonna do for the month of Pride, and so yeah.
I mean, we're not going to New York City Pride Parade, the New York City Pride Parade, because that's not happening. At least,
right? No. I didn't mean. A.
Or going to Fire Island? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. No, we're not.
Fire Island.
I don't have plans.
It's not my jam. It's not my scene.
Have you been to Fire Island?
No, but I've seen photos and videos. I'm like, I did not want to be there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's too many people.
Well, in places it might be, but yes, but you also don't like the beach, right?
I don't like I don't like beaches. I don't like, being by the water, lake houses, things like that. So I don't think Fire Island really does it for me. And the wild parties
wouldn't.
It's also not my jam.
Yeah, I don't think, I've only been to Fire Island once or twice.
Okay.
Once, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe twice.
And
we were with a group, and we cooked dinner at night. We hung out together.
Did you go to an underwear party?
I didn't. No, we did not. No.
That's not your thing?
That is not my thing, no.
Just checking.
This was several years ago, but it was a
before
good time.
Dennis.
Yeah, it was before Dennis. Yeah,
okay.
And it was my first time out there, and it was good. We cooked dinner as a group. Bringing food over was, some of us brought some food over. We picked up a few things at the market, but it's all about community, and it doesn't have to be about these parties. And it wasn't a busy weekend either. In fact, the week that I went, it was after the big week and weekend. So we got there and pretty much everyone had gone. So
got it.
So it really depends, but hanging out, certain houses. We had a pool, which was nice. We had that to kind of enjoy, and yeah, it's just a different vibe out there.
I don't like pools either. But more power to
You
you.
can work on the list of the things that you do like, because
Oh my
we talk
God,
a lot about
it's like few and far between. I don't know what to tell you.
You know,
It's a very limited list.
We need to come up with the list of things that you do like.
It's a very tiny list.
Yeah. So no, going back to my thing about Pride. No, we weren't. You and I this morning were talking about Pride and what we'll do on the podcast for the month of Pride.
Okay. Remind me what we're doing. And also / list let our listeners know what we're doing.
I understand, Mr. Spock. The glory of creation is in its infinite diversity.
And the ways our differences combine to create meaning and beauty.
Sure. So, I came up with this idea that we would tackle a question that relates to our LGBTQ-ness and Star Trek. So, it's sort of just a little bit about our story and how Star Trek fits into it. It can be characters, it can be episodes, it can be feelings or thoughts or things like that. And this week is a very generic question.
It is a generic question.
But I think that the answer...
But it's a good, gateway question.
Yeah, it's a great gateway question. So
yes.
It's sort of like the we did not come up for a name for this. It's just kind of our Pride Month discussion. So each week we'll have a question and we'll pose it to our audience. And once we figure out how to get...
Wait, do we want our listeners to respond to us or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be great for our LGBTQ listeners to share the answer to this question.
If you're not LGBTQ, please don't engage with us on social.
No. I mean, we do enjoy engagement with that, but I think the questions are going to be geared towards the LGBTQ community. So,
sure.
And when I mean the LGBTQ, I'm not leaving out the longer acronym. Yeah, the longer acronym is also included in that. And there's so many letters now in our acronym.
Ugh, learn
God,
English.
That's horrible. But we want to include it for everyone, because I think that us as LGBTQ viewers of Star Trek have a certain perspective on what Star Trek means to us. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to have a question each week, and we hope that some of our listeners will get back to us. And when you do, we're hoping that either you'll record an audio clip that we can play into this.
Oh my God, that's asking for a lot,
or we'll share it. We'll share some responses, however it works.
I was like, can we provide less of a barrier to entry for people to actually engage with us than to record an audio clip and share it, please?
No, it's not that hard.
We'll take anything. We'll take anything.
There we go. All right, we will take anything, absolutely. Yes. But we would like you to be part of this discussion. And so for this week, the second day of Pride Month, this first episode in Pride Month, I thought the question, a nice, easy entry question. Although
I still have to think about it, though. I still have to
you did. Well, it does. So these questions do require some thinking. So here's our first question for Pride Month. How did Star Trek make you feel about being LGBTQ? Once you knew that you were LGBTQ. So for us, it's once we knew that we were gay, which happened at different times in our life. I think younger people that grew up more recently in the last 20 to 25 years would have a different answer for this than for us, who came out at different times in our life. So I'm just excited to kind of engage around these ideas of what Star Trek has done well for us as LGBTQ viewers. So do you want to start off, or do you want me
Sure, I can start off since you asked the question and you also thought of the prompt. I can begin.
And I gave you plenty of time to come up with this answer. I didn't.
I know you gave it. Okay, you gave me this question this morning, and then I had 8 hours of meetings, and 8 hours later, I was like, okay, let me think about this question. So, I'm trying to not be redundant because we've talked about our experiences with being gay and Star Trek in the past, like, National Coming Out Day was in October or something like that. So we had that. And I think our first episode, we also talked about a little bit. So I was trying to think of, I was trying to come up with a slightly different angle that is still true to my experience with Star Trek. But as a refresher, I did come out a little bit later in life, not later, but I came out in college. So it took me a while to really realize or come out to myself and then start coming out to others. And honestly, it wasn't even until my early 30s that I came out to a broader, like in a broader sense, after coming out to my parents. That kind of opened up the gates for coming out to a larger population, I suppose. So I would say that, like, for me, when it comes to Star Trek and how it resonated with my coming out process is, I think the interesting about Star Trek is that the matter and issue of identity is kind of like not a really big issue. And what I mean by that is, I think even though I'm not a fan of the original series, sorry, I just can't. I really can't. I think Gene Roddenberry, and we've seen this in not only documentaries, interviews, and whatever. He made a very purposeful attempt to have representation on the bridge of the Enterprise, but for the most part, people weren't like, horror wasn't like, I'm the Black person on the bridge. Chekhov wasn't like, I'm the Russian person on the bridge. They were just who they were. And their identity, whether it be their gender identity, I have things to say about gender representation on the original series. And, parts of it are dated, and we've talked about this. But for the most part, the matter of who they were, whether it be their sexual identity, their race, their gender, their culture, it kind of just was. But it ultimately didn't really matter. Like it kind of just, it was a part of it. It was a part of who they were, but it was kind of like no big deal. They were all kind of on the bridge. They were exploring. They were facing issues together. They were doing their thing. And it didn't really matter, Obviously, this is like it's a double-edged sword because you can, we can say like there are certain, like for example, like we can talk about like how Star Trek was kind of behind when it came to the matter of LGBTQ representation. But I kind of like the idea that like it wasn't a big deal. Like there is an idea of that where no matter who you are, you're all equal. You have the same opportunities. And DS9 addresses in a different way, where Sisko never talked about the fact that he's Black, but he would have these visions that would somehow relate to his current experiences that would address the issue, or he would travel back in time. What was that two-parter? You remember Benny Russell? He was Benny Russell. It was like the race riots or whatever. It wasn't race riots. It was like Benny Russell. I don't know. It wasn't about race. It was about just like,
Something
inequality.
In stars. Oh man, why can't I think of it? We've talked about it. We did a whole episode on this.
I don't remember the name of the episode, unfortunately. But like it's always like perspective on the past versus the now. Like, he just didn't, his race did not matter. So, that's one thing I really appreciate about Star Trek. It's like, no matter who you are, no matter what you represent, no matter your identity, you have equal footing with everyone else. I mean, sometimes we got through analogy how other races, sometimes we're a little heavy-handed, like, how it was from the viewpoint of other races, how, what, you guys are so behind, what, whatever. But within the Federation and Starfleet, we kind of didn't see that inequality, and we didn't see people having to kind of, gender inequality. That wasn't a thing, like it just wasn't. So yeah, I think for me, that's where Star Trek was really something that I admired when it came to me kind of coming to terms with my gender identity, my sexual identity rather, and trying to kind of reconcile that with my place in things, which I think that this is one of the reasons why, and this is another one of my critiques of Discovery, and people may very much disagree with me. I didn't like how Adira, first of all, there was also fanfare around Star Trek finally getting like LGBTQIA characters on the show, but then Adira had to come out in a way to Stamets, and I was kind of like, I get it, I get what Star Trek's trying to do here, but in some ways it's almost backwards to me how they had to come out in a very just outdated process in my mind in some ways. Whereas I think that if they didn't have to awkwardly come out, it would have been so much more powerful. So I don't know. That's my perspective on Star Trek. And I feel like they're, unfortunately, in my opinion, the series has tried to catch up, in some ways had to overcompensate for how behind they were. Whereas before, I think that it was almost like, it's fine. You can be whoever you want. You can be whoever. You can identify as however. It doesn't matter. I think that there is something powerful in that too. Anyway, that's my take. What about you, Mike?
Well, it's interesting because we did not talk about this. We did not talk about this answer.
No.
I posed a question and you thought on it, and
we thought about it. Yes.
Own answer. And it's interesting because I did not expect you to go back to the original series and reference that, because that's not your Star Trek, right?
No. But it's still the foundation of, Absolutely. I know enough about it where it's the foundation of the series.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually surprised, and it's kind of funny because for me, so to give you the short coming out piece, for me, I didn't come out until I was 30 or 31. I don't remember the exact time frame. I was
you were also late.
Yeah, I was also late, and so that there's that point in my life. But the point at which I started watching Star Trek was probably in, I don't know, anywhere between 8 and 12, somewhere in that range. I don't remember exactly what year I started watching it, but it was something that I would watch with my uncle, and it was the original series initially. Mm-hmm. Now, we're both big fans of Next Generation, and that's sort of where, for me, I was 14, I believe it was 14 when Next Generation started, the same age as Wesley. Will Wheaton is actually just a few months older than I am. So there's that piece of when I finally got to see myself as a young man in Star Trek. For that, but for me, a lot of my formation happened watching TOS, watching the original series, and seeing that diversity. And it's funny, almost word for word of what you said, seeing that diversity on screen and how they treated and respected each other on screen. Uh-huh. Again, we know that things were not as clean as they were on screen behind the scenes. However, yes. For a kid, the age that I started watching this, let's just say 8 or 9, this was the foundation for me, right? I got to see people of different races, countries, backgrounds, yes, Uhura was the only woman on there, but I was surrounded by a family of women as well. My mom, and my grandmother was, my Nana was the kind of matriarch of the family for a long, long time. And so, I had that female perspective as well in my life. It wasn't just, that I saw a mostly male cast on Star Trek, but I saw people from different countries and parts of the world on here, and just like you, like different identities, from culturally to gender to not sexually or sexuality, but just a variety, all being treated and respected in the same way. And that was my foundation for life, was seeing that the world was the future world would be like that. And so that was sort of always in my mind growing up, that, it doesn't matter what you look like, where you're from, who you are,
right,
you're human, and you're accepted, and you're respected and treated as such. And for me, what actually stands out more is not Uhura per se. I think I've shared a little bit about, there was an African American family down the street from my grandmother's that played a huge role in my life early on. And but for me, in the time that I grew up, there was always a lot of tension between Russia and the US, not unlike now. So seeing Chekhov on the bridge stands out to me more in that respect, because back then it was always Russia versus the US, or back then the USSR, right, versus the USA. But that idea that everyone is respected equally, treated with respect, no matter what their identity is, was a foundation for me. And so that really created a lot of my ethics as a young person, and ethics that I still carry today, despite coming out later in life. Those same sort of ethics apply to me when I was coming out. Now, when I came out, and being gay and experiencing gay life was certainly the focus, but as I progressed through that stage in my development in my life, it became, not a smaller piece, but a less of a focus piece, right? Like who I am is made up of many different qualities. I'm Christian, I'm gay, I'm a partner, I'm an uncle, I'm a brother, I'm a son. Like there's so many, I'm a coach, I'm a techie, I'm all these things, an Apple user, all these different identities that
Apple user.
Well, I mean, an Apple fan. I mean, everything I have is Apple. So, but being gay is just a small part of who I am as a person, and who I love is, just a small part of my identity. But all of that to say is that, Star Trek really helped form that opinion in me growing up, and I've just carried that through my life. So my level of respect for other people, diversity and all those things, diversity, I think that's probably part of the reason why I've gravitated to and have now lived in New York for over 10 years, is because of the diversity of people and experiences that I can have here versus growing up in Maine and moving to Boston and in New England in general. There's less diversity. So I've found that my life experiences here in New York have really expanded much beyond where I grew up and how I formed, and my experiences coming out and all of that. So and Star Trek played the foundation for that. I think it's not until Discovery, obviously, that we see our first gay main character, a gay couple, in fact. And that was that was affirming to see. And then in this recent season, seeing the addition of a transgender and a non-binary character / actors to portray them was inspiring. And it's funny, I don't see Adira coming out as they them to Stamets in quite the same way you do, mainly because I think that, one, it's a great example of finding your voice and speaking that language, which
I
is
agree. I just think
what
that
you're doing.
if it's like what it's they're in the 31st century now, right? Adira is a 31st century citizen. So by then, I would hope that it's not so. It was literally like, hey, it was literally like a 21st century coming out conversation, And I know that Star Trek straddles the line, and not always very well, in my opinion, between futuristic and contemporary, because it still is a product of today's culture. But I would think that, I have an opinion about this, and not everyone will agree with me. I just think that if we're talking about literally 1,000 years in the future, it should be very, very simple. Or it shouldn't, or like more people should be they, them, it shouldn't be so unusual. I don't know what that would look like, but it just felt like, wow, she's having like a conversation in 2020, that just felt like what it was. So, which is, to me, it was kind of like, meh,
Okay. I mean,
that was my reaction to it.
Yeah. I mean, we have different perspectives on this.
No, never.
I think, that's a great example of that coming out process. And yes, the show is in the 31st century, but you're right. It's produced here in 2020, and it's a reflection of what's going on in the world today, expounded upon into the future.
Right.
But I think it's been great to see that. Certainly, the one scene that still sticks with me, and the minute when we talk about discovery or being gay and seeing images of Star Trek that represent you, is the mirror scene in episode 3 or 4 or 5.
That was great. It was just like everyday life. We're just doing this. That was like, I think that's good. No big deal. It's just like everyday life, it's fine. Yeah. And I think that that's kind of what I'm talking about. It should have been kind of just very like, oh, there it is, natural, versus we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think that in that sort of situation, you have to remember that she's younger. I mean, she's just younger and inexperienced as. But
I'm talking about 31st century here. The culture should be completely different.
Right. I mean,
it's literally 1,000.
We hope that it's different. Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about how things are now versus the year 1000 AD. You know what I mean? It should be that stark of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. But it's not, going back to that scene where they're brushing their teeth, Hugh and Paul. I think that's a really touching scene for me personally, being in an interracial couple situation as well. I could see myself in that example, and that's actually when, I think I felt most seen, quote unquote, by Star Trek. But when it comes to my values started way back when I first started watching Star Trek. And I think that for many viewers, I would hope that, I think about all of the young women who have grown up under Catherine Janeway's tenure as captain, right? That brought a lot of focus to women leaders and to that same piece. And I think that that's an important thing too. Like, so I think you can find value and values in Star Trek that align with the LGBTQ experience.
Yes.
And also an ideal world in which these things are not an issue, and that everyone is allowed to have the gender identity that they feel is appropriate for them, that they have the partners that they love that's appropriate to them, that is, that there is no prejudice against them for the type of love that they are expressing. I think those are the things that Star Trek kind of espouses, and that's sort of the feeling that I get as we kind of look forward. But I think the people who are watching Star Trek are not you and me predominantly. I think that why these conversations and why that coming out of Adira to say that they, them, is for the people who are not us, giving them an example of how important it is for us to be seen and to be heard. And that's where I see Star Trek taking that conversation and having that example to do that.
Yes. However, I do think, and we've had this discussion as well, I do think where Star Trek excels more in these areas is through analogy. And there have been episodes which have been a little heavy-handed. You know, we've talked about these episodes that reflect, you know, that nevertheless make this effort to espouse these situations that reflect society today in humanity, versus how things are in Starfleet, in the Federation. So I know we touched on the Outcast last week, so that's just top of mind for me. It's not perfect, but I think the Outcast is an example of where through this situation, through a different lens, we're given this treatment essentially of, you know, the gay coming out experience, right?
You're talking about the Drumhead or the Outcast?
No, the Outcast, because we touched on it very briefly last week. If you remember, as we were deliberating another episode to watch, like a season 6 episode, or season 5 episode rather, to watch. Right. I don't remember what season it is. But that I think is where Star Trek excels. It's through through almost like a fable, you know, a story that it creates this modern day analogy, versus like a straight up coming out conversation. But at least that's my opinion. Yeah.
So great first discussion. I think that covers a lot of ground, and we'd love to hear from you, our dear listeners. And the question again is, how does Star Trek make you feel about being LGBTQ+? So if you'd like to share your thoughts with us, send us a message on either Instagram or Twitter, preferably Instagram, but
we're active on both. We respond to people.
Yeah, not as much on. I mean, we're not as great on Twitter, but our handle anyway is at Deep Space Pride. You can also email us if you're so inclined to deepspacepride@gmail.com, and we'll share some of the responses next time on this question, and we'll have a new question next week to talk about Pride Month and how Star Trek and the LGBTQ experience intersect.
Hooray! Hopefully we get some people engaging with us. Otherwise, it'll be kind of sad, but whatever. It's fine. Our 3 listeners.
We have 4.
Oh, 4 listeners. Oh, wait. Yay, can't wait. I can't wait till Vegas. It's like, hey, guys, what's going on? Anyway.
Well, we may have more listeners out there that we just don't know about. So,
well, Mike, thank you. I appreciate you coming up with this question for us to discuss. And are you going to come up with all of them? Because I'm really bad at coming up with questions.
Yeah, I mean, I already tossed out an potential example for the next one, but I'm going to fine tune it.
I had critical feedback.
What?
But I think that was the one where I had like critical feedback or something. I don't remember.
Well, I said it wasn't perfect out of the get-go, and I was
like, this is dumb, but I didn't say that.
You didn't say that.
No,
but clearly now you did.
No, I'm much nicer than that. Okay, so why don't we move on to our next segment, unless Mikey had any other thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think this is a good segue. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yes, it's a great / potentially awkward segue into the main topic of our conversation today, which is the continuation of our series, where we are talking about the underappreciated episodes of The Next Generation. We never really defined what underappreciated means, and we didn't get called out for it, but we certainly had 1 or 2 folks on social at least mentioned that they didn't think that the Drumhead was an underappreciated episode. And then I had to be like, okay, you know what though? We say literally in this recording or the previous recording that we never put parameters around what underappreciated means. Does it mean, I don't think it means like people didn't like this episode. I don't, at least I didn't take it like that. The way that I took it was, this is not an episode that people really talk about as like one of their favorites. And it's not like best of both worlds, like, or the inner light, or I don't know what's
Yesterday's Enterprise.
Good job. Yesterday's Enterprise. Instead we're talking about Tin Man, like, so not that this is a bad episode, it's just not fondly recalled. At least that's how I defined it.
I would say, I would agree. I would say that these are episodes that, you may come across in like scanning for an episode to watch.
It's like top 50, top 50.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably in our, right. We're probably in a,
not top 10,
Right. Yeah. It's, top 25, top 50 episodes. Yeah. So this week was my choice, right?
Yes. Yeah. You were to like, which one? This was when you were saying like, oh, should we talk about the Outcast? I was like, no, the Outcast is oftentimes in the discourse. So I don't think the Outcast is underappreciated. So I shot that one down, and then you picked this one.
Yeah, I did pick this one. So this week we're going to be talking about Ensign Ro.
Am I disturbing you?
Yes.
Good. You look like someone who wants to be disturbed.
I'd rather be alone.
Oh, no, you wouldn't.
I beg your pardon?
Well, if you wanted to be alone, you would have stayed in your quarters. The only reason to come here is to be amongst people.
Who are you?
My name is Guinan. I tend bar, and I listen.
Huh. You heard anything interesting?
Everyone's talking about you.
Heard anything interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's all true.
I believe truth is in the eye of the beholder.
Isn't that supposed to be beauty?
Truth, beauty, works for a lot of things.
Which I do think is, by probably many definitions, like an underappreciated episode. It's definitely not. Is it even top 50? I don't even know.
I don't know. I mean,
it's certainly not like, oh, one of my favorite episodes ever. I wouldn't say that either. So I do think
but I would say that I've watched this episode now twice in the last.
I watched it twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've enjoyed it both times.
Yeah.
It's a good character story.
Yes.
So let me tell you the description.
Yes, I was like, can you please let our listeners know what this episode is about?
So this is episode 3 of season 5, and the description is: a new officer, Ensign Ro, hence the title of the episode, is enlisted to track down a band of Bajoran terrorists. Yet Ro, a Bajoran herself, must first win her crewmates' trust. So
I have to say, because I watched this episode, I don't remember the first time I watched this episode, but I rewatched this episode like a few months ago or a couple months ago. And then I rewatched it the other day, and then I like totally forgot like the opening scene with Mott. And I was like, oh, I forgot Mott was in this episode at the very beginning where he's giving Ken Picard like a haircut. And I was like, you know what? I can watch a whole spinoff with Mott. He's just like knows how to hold conversation. I hope he appears in Lower Decks or something. I can have a whole series just about Mott.
That's funny. I mean, I actually found that to be the least interesting part about this episode.
Okay, I was like, I can do this all day.
And I actually didn't. I understand why you would enjoy him, because he's very opinionated.
He has thoughts. He has notes.
He has lots of notes, and doesn't exactly let you get a word in edgewise. Are you seeing any parallels here?
What? Are you saying something about me?
So yeah, that piece of the episode, and it has no effect on the rest of the episode. It's clearly just a throw in, and Picard makes a comment as they're talking on the bridge, and then like the side eye, this the head roll or whatever it was. The reaction was like, Mott's the, you have to, if you want the best barber in Starfleet, you have to put up with some like gossip and BS. So
it is one of the rare times that we see the Enterprise D salon. I'm like, take me there. I'm ready.
I think it's the only time we see the Enterprise.
No, we see it again in Sub Rosa.
Oh my!
Yeah, come on.
God. Well,
yeah,
I mean, I think we've inadvertently chosen Sub Rosa as our season 7 pick for the underappreciated episodes. But so that brings up a really good point that I haven't talked about, and this is a little bit of a like tangent, but this is Deep Space Pride, and we love tangents.
Okay.
So
what do you think? Mott's gay?
No.
Oh,
you and I have had a little bit of discourse about Gates McFadden's new podcast, and so this is funny enough. So I wanted to bring this up because Sub Rosa made me think of Gates. Gates made me think of her most recent episode. Her most recent episode was with Will Wheaton.
Yes,
and it was actually really good. And it's only part 1. And I'm super excited because I think today probably episode 2.
Yeah,
second half of it dropped. So I'm excited to listen to that. I do agree the first 2 were a little too nostalgic, too like
Investigates? Is that what you're talking about?
Of her podcast Investigates.
Was it very nostalgic? They talk about jazz a lot. I'm like, what's happening?
Well, they talk about nostalgic things, right? They talk about the past a lot.
They don't talk a lot about Star Trek. They talk about their childhoods.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Jazz.
That's nostalgia.
I was like, I hate jazz. I don't know.
That is the definition of nostalgia.
Oh my God. Jazz
reminiscing
is like so
about
boring.
The past.
I'm just saying jazz is boring. Continue. Jazz is not the past. Jazz is not just the past. Jazz is like still very present. Depends on who you are and where you are. But anyway, go ahead.
There we go. Anyway, so I just want to give a shout out because I thought the Will Wheaton episode part 1 was excellent in her podcast. And they actually did it in person, separated and all of that. But it was
separated by like an acrylic fence or whatever.
PPE and whatnot. But I thought it was really nice to hear her and Will talk, and there's clearly a great relationship there.
It was cute when they called each other like, "Hey, Space Mom. Hey, Space Son." That was cute.
Fun, yeah. So anyway, end of tangent. Moving back to Ensign Ro now. So, I have watched this twice within the last 2 weeks, and I have enjoyed this immensely. And I think this is the introduction. I don't know if it's the introduction to the Cardassians, but it is definitely the introduction to the Bajorans, which leads us to, Deep Space Nine, which is our favorite series.
I think they're still trying to figure it out because they kept on being referred to as the Bajora. I was like,
Bajora, yeah.
I was like, who are those people? Who are the Bajora? Yeah. Please share more.
Right, yeah. So this is definitely the first episode of the Bajorans being part of the Star Trek universe. And, let me tell you, like, I have some favorite parts of this episode. Kennelly is a Badmiral right off the get-go. I'm using a Discovery moniker for a next generation episode, but, the Admirals are always a hit or miss. It's like, you have no idea what you're going to get. Right. And, well, clearly this guy and...
Who's your favorite Admiral? Do you have one?
Ooh.
I am all about Admiral Nachiev. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
Strong woman. I can use so many strong women.
She's such a bitch, though.
What? Are you calling her that just because she's a strong woman?
No, I'm not. I mean, I think there's a difference between being a strong woman and doing it.
How is she bitchy?
How is she not? She is always bitchy.
She just has thoughts and opinions, and she's not afraid to exercise her position.
Yeah, I think that's the part of it that bothers me is the exercise of power without some judiciousness. And anyway,
You think she's not just okay? We can have a whole separate podcast.
We
About
can have a whole separate podcast.
All right.
Yeah, she's not my favorite, but and I mean,
You have one? Do you have a favorite admiral? Is it Admiral Janeway? No,
It's not Admiral Janeway.
I don't know. I was. Just
Why are you answering? You ask me a question and then you answer it for me.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
You are in prime form today for interrupting and over talking on me. Just
go.
I think that, and I can't think of his name. I think the Admiral in Deep Space Nine during the war. I can't think of his name. I can see him.
Oh yeah, what's his name? He's dead. The actor's dead.
And he died, like he did die in the show. The starbase that he was on, or the starship that he was on, was destroyed, I believe.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
But anyway, he's one of my favorites. The other one that you never see but is always referred to and is in some of the books is Admiral Nagura from the motion picture era.
Oh man,
Star Trek, the original series. So
not. Ugh.
But only for the name and kind of the relationship that he clearly has with Kirk. Nechea's fine. She is just a bitch. She's blocky. But it's not a slant against powerful women at all. It's just I think there are some
great haircut.
Okay, well. Yeah,
I'm just saying.
She has almost a haircut like you, right?
What? She has short hair.
She has short hair.
She has more hair than me. In any case, how do we get on
so
this? The Badmiral. Goodness.
The Badmiral. Yeah, you took us on this tangent, by the way. Kennelly just comes off as bad right from the get-go, and when you see that scene where he calls Ensign Ro after one of my favorite scenes, which is Guinan and Ensign Ro. Love that conversation. Love it.
I did think that Guinan / Whoopi was a little stiff in this episode. I don't, something just about her.
I loved it. It was sassy. Like, my name is Guinan.
It was off, like
bar and I listen.
When she went into her room later on, because Ensign Ro was like grounded / confined to quarters, and then Guinan comes by and she's like, "Hi, it's me, Guinan." I'm like, "What? That's so weird." When she goes in and she's like, "Hi, it's me, Guinan." I'm like, "This is the third time you've introduced yourself. Is that necessary?" But other than that, which I thought was
I love the interaction. I love that interaction, but I love the one in 10 Forward even more.
Who are you?
I told you. I'm Guinan. I tend bar and I listen.
Oh, you're not like any bartender I've ever met before.
And you're not like any Starfleet officer I've ever met before. But that sounds like the beginning of a very interesting friendship.
I don't stay anywhere long enough to make friends.
Too late. You just did.
No, that one's good.
It's one of my favorite banters with Guinan that you can possibly have, and kudos to Guinan for, like, if you want to be alone, you don't go to a bar to be alone.
No, it's great logic.
So really love that. But you get this bad feeling about Kennelly from the start, and then you see him contacting Ro surreptitiously, and then that he's bad.
You mean when she was like, everything's going according to plan? Like,
yeah.
Like, I mean, that was a hint.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the other scene that I really love, I actually really love the dynamic between Picard and Ro. Like, it starts off rough, and I love how she comes into the ready room and plops down and like has her arms crossed and like is just very like almost like a teenager.
I know.
Sent to the principal's office.
Yeah, I thought that she came on a little bit strong. I mean, like, I get that she doesn't want to be there, but you don't have to, like, make enemies right off the gate. Like, it's not.
Well, I mean, to
You
be
know?
fair, Riker is not the most welcoming.
No.
Picard has a strong reaction as well, which he discusses with Kennelly.
No,
But
they're not
and
fans.
Picard does not rein in Riker's like kind of like super direct, no empathy approach to her at all in the ready room in front of him. Like he is like does not want any part of this BS of hers. But it goes from that scene right to when they get to the planet and they land, and Picard lets her lead and introduce them and offer like she generates. There's this then in that moment you see the two of them generate a new kind of relationship. Like Picard sees her in action, he sees her amongst her people and how she interacts with them. I love her little jibe at, what do you think, Ro? And Ro's like, I think you're a little enjoying this power a little bit too much. Eve, I think you need to listen and shut up.
Well, I'm not here to debate Federation policy with you, but I can offer you assistance.
Simply because of one terrorist attack? Well, perhaps I should have known that. We should have attacked the Federation long ago. What do you think of that, Ro?
I think you're a small man who feels a rush of power in his belly and enjoys it far too much, Keith. Stop talking and listen.
So I like that approach, and that's sort of where Picard and Ro start this relationship, right? This almost mentorship where he sees what Guinan saw already and what Guinan has to bring back to Picard's attention after she goes AWOL and does her side mission. And has to, and I love that Guinan brings her to the ready room, has no regard for proper protocols or anything, which I love.
Yeah, I don't know how she got her out of.
Guinan just has free reign wherever she goes. I love it. Let me just tell you as a side note, I am super excited to see Guinan in Picard. Cannot wait. I hope that she's in multiple episodes.
I'm like holding my judgment.
I know, yes. You always are clutching your pearls as to what will happen next. But I am super excited to see Whoopi Goldberg back as Guinan and also interacting with this new Picard. I just can't wait. And this is how much I love Whoopi Goldberg. This is how much I love the character of Guinan. I love this.
It's just like obviously Whoopi Goldberg has aged while Guinan's supposed to be.
Yeah, but they all have. I mean, everyone has. It's been 20 years.
Oh yeah, sure. But when we saw her in Time's Arrow versus like now, even though it was like 300 years, no, even longer. Yes, even longer. Sorry, 400 years or so. She was like same,
Yeah.
So it is what it is, obviously.
There's not much you can do about that unless you recast the parts and
or use a lot of CG. Which is
which in thinking about that, I think that that sort of CG has had limited success.
Limited success, yeah. Data looked a little bit like stiff, like in Picard season 1. It's just hard. It's hard.
No, and I was even thinking like how they've used CGI to soften, to create Princess Leia and
oh my god,
in Rogue One, and Tarkin in
those were just like basic. Those are like completely CG characters. We're not even talking about like, let's make them younger looking.
Right. It's taking known footage of them and putting it into, yes, exactly. So anyway, I'm super excited to see Guinan. I think that this is a. I
hope they don't ruin her character.
I don't think they will.
Let's see.
They didn't ruin Picard. I don't think they're going to ruin Guinan.
Picard was fine. I have thoughts, but it's okay.
You have thoughts about everything.
Do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay, continue.
Everything. So, I think there's a lot of great scenes in this, and that it just the action and the story just propels itself really well. This is once you get past the Mott thing and you
which I liked.
Yeah, whatever. Totally could do without that. Totally. Once you get going, once they approach Starbase 1 as Starbase whatever, Lyra or whatever.
I don't remember. Wait, what was it?
The Starbase 1, the one in Earth from the Enterprise.
They were at Starbase 1?
No. The image of the space station that
was it? It was Space Dock?
Yes, that was Space Dock.
Oh, I didn't. I wasn't really paying attention.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize they were at Space Dock.
It is the same. All they did was scrub out the original Enterprise or the refitted Enterprise.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And it wasn't even. It was the same shot as the last time they went to Starbase, which may have been during not McKinley Station. Sorry, when they went to during 10011001.
All right,
that episode.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, that's all Starbase.
I wasn't paying attention.
/ Space Dock. So,
Space Dock.
it's again, it's saving budget money right there, and bringing up an old screen and then using it. So same shot. Yeah. So
okay.
Other than that, I once the action gets going and once Ro gets on there, the story just is really well written. It propels you through the entire episode. You aren't sure what's going to happen. You see what happens. It's still like the way that Picard interacts with Kennelly after it's kind of all figured out.
Yeah, he's like, bitch.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're owned now. You're owned.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great, a lot of great interactions here, and it's really a Picard Ro episode with guest starring Guinan and then this Badmiral and some Bajorans, which we get to see what Bajoran life is like prior to
during the occupation.
Yeah, during the occupation prior to Deep Space Nine. So
I also very much like this episode, and as you said at the very beginning, it is I thought it was a great character centric episode, like a character building episode, and we don't often get another Starfleet officer that's kind of like this, that rubs the crew the wrong way and creates all this friction. And she comes in guns blazing a little bit, which I think was okay, which I get. She's very defensive, but I like it when she becomes more vulnerable, especially when she kind of admits to Guinan in that scene in her room where she's like, yeah, I'm in trouble, I don't know what to do, and Guinan's like, you can trust Picard. I really liked the development of her character and her story arc in this episode. I thought that her evolution was very believable. I did think that by the end, where Picard was like, there's there's a spot for you on the Enterprise, I thought that was maybe a little fast, but especially given how her background is not erased, right? She was still court-martialed. She's still caused this disastrous away team mission. It's not like that's forgotten or forgiven. So I do think that, sure, you develop sympathy for her, and I can see how Picard develops sympathy for her, but to then kind of do this about face, I thought was a little fast. But I was also kind of okay with it. But yeah, I really just enjoyed. I like Rolaren as a character in general. I think that every episode she's in, she usually has a decent amount to do. She usually plays a foil. I think she's in the next episode or 2 episodes after Disaster. And I don't know if you remember that episode that well, but basically Deanna Troi is left in command of the bridge, and she needs to figure out what to do. And Ro is just separate the saucer and leave everyone else to die. That's basically what because the warp core is potentially critical, and she's very pragmatic. She's okay, there's no way for us to get anyone to engineering to fix this issue, so you should save as many people as you can and fucking separate the saucer, you know? And of course, Deanna's like, no, let's like, we need to give them a chance, whatever. And then obviously the Enterprise is saved. But I do like this aspect of her where she is not, she's not afraid to kind of go against the grain and to kind of speak her mind. And even if it is against a superior officer, like she doesn't care. She doesn't give a shit. And I mentioned this in a past episode, but I also recently watched Preemptive Strike, which was Ro Laren's last appearance on Next Generation. It was also the penultimate episode of TNG. But, you know, she, in that episode, I don't know if you remember, and spoilers for people that haven't seen this episode, she joins the Maquis. Like, she decides, because she's supposed to, like, infiltrate the Maquis and kind of suss them out, and then basically deliver them to Starfleet. And she basically has doubts along the way. She's not sure. She sees that they have a cause, and then she kind of realizes that she belongs there. And then she decides to just quit. And then she turns her back on Picard. Like that was her like biggest regret in that episode. Like, because Picard like advocated for her to like join like the special ops tactical force, whatever it is. And you see her kind of really struggling with her loyalty to Picard versus her newfound loyalty to the Maquis. And in the end, like, she goes with what she thinks is right. So I think that it's like she's a really interesting character. And I think it's too bad that she didn't get the opportunity. You didn't get to see more of her in Deep Space Nine, because there was the potential for her to kind of become Major Kira's character. But I also love Major Kira, so whatever. So it's okay.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I mean, Major Kira is essentially formulated on Ensign Ro.
Oh my god, Kira is such an amazing character that I
absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm glad that it didn't work out. But originally, Michelle Forbes's character Ensign Ro was the template for, and possibly even, I think she was offered the job to go.
She was. She was offered the position and she turned it down.
So she didn't want to do like a full series or whatever.
But yeah, no, great character. Really good episode. Slightly underappreciated because it's not like one of the top tier ones, but yeah, it's I think similar to Drumhead, it's a very interesting self-contained episode. You get to get a little bit more insight into the characters. We get introduced to a strong female character, and I don't know.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to add that you said, and I think that I wish they had kind of explored this, is a little bit about what Guinan said to her, which is true. She didn't defend herself at the court martial. So I feel like, that is part of Ro's story, is that there's some information that is left out or that's glossed over in that whole situation that she just took the blame for and decided to give up and not fight it. Or so there's always this little bit of a question as to what happened on Garon 2 as far as everything that occurred, that to take the blame for 8 people dying and what little detail we get about the whole incident, it seems like a lot. But she sort of laid down and kind of let it happen, let the court martial happen, probably out of an abundance of guilt, but not necessarily an abundance of blame. So there's that piece of the story, which I think for me makes it easier to swallow, that Picard offers her, encourages her to stay on, stay in Starfleet. So there's that piece. So for you, you said it happened too fast. For me, I think there's enough of a question of what happened in that incident that that Picard could kind of see past that and offer her, to stay on the Enterprise
Yeah.
and become a better officer. So I think that's an interesting part of her character as well that kind of gets glossed over or underdeveloped per se.
One thing that I would have liked to see was how the opinions of the other characters may have changed of her, because obviously we got her, we saw the interactions between her and the rest of the crew, like basically the entire bridge staff, and it was either kind of awkward to straight out like mean, like very confrontational, and obviously we won't get really Picard's perspective out of all this, but I would have liked to see like how other opinions may have changed due to this experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things though too is that both Beverly and Deanna tried to sit with her, and
right, yeah, I was like,
so there is that.
Like,
so there's that little bit of like trying to reach out and make a connection as members.
Like, no, you cannot sit with me.
Yeah,
can't sit with us, or in this case, me.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a.
Do you
great
get the reference?
No.
Can't sit with us? No? Mean Girls?
Oh, yeah, it's been a long time. I mean, I know.
Oh my God!
Now you say that, I get it, but I don't have Mean Girls memorized in my head.
Oh my gosh! There's only so many references to Mean Girls that you can't sit with us. Don't try to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. No, nothing.
The fetch piece, I don't understand.
Oh man! All right, it's over. It's fine. I want to revoke your gay card.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. Come on, Mean Girls.
That movie is 20 years old as well.
All right. You know what? We're talking about like a franchise that's like 50 years old. So whatever.
Right. Yeah. So there we go.
Speaking
of, that's a great segue
into what?
Into our sponsor, Fansets.
Oh my God! Oh yes,
Fansets. How's that for a segue, right?
Look at that! Where is this going?
That's so awesome! Wow. Speaking of anniversaries, right, and years apart, so Fansets is a sponsor of Deep Space Pride, and
yes, they are
the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and they just launched yesterday the anniversary collection of pins, and they are pretty cool.
Isn't it like many ships or something?
Yeah, it's many ships attached to like a number of whatever anniversary it is. So it's the 7-pin anniversary collection, and it's 7 pins. If you order them all together, you get the bonus pin, which is a nice yellow, red, and blue background on. It looks like it looks more like the JJ Enterprise than it is on the original Enterprise, but it's hard to kind of make out for sure. But to me, it looks more like that, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
So yeah, so this 7th anniversary pin collection came out yesterday. It's the 55th anniversary of Star Trek this year, which is we are going to the 55-year mission /
STLV
convention.
That's our official hashtag, by the way.
What is
STLV?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I don't know.
But they can no longer say that. They can't use that.
They can use STLV. They just can't say Star Trek.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
awkward.
But I also didn't, I do know that it's the Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise's 20th anniversary, which I continue to enjoy my rewatch. I am now in season 2.
Oh, yeah, look at you.
Enjoying that. So that's of interest to me because I really am loving this. And I think, honestly, like I'm thinking about the Trek Geeks and how they do the see it or skip it. And I think I've come across my first skip it, even though I suffered through it. Which
episode was this?
A Night in Sick Bay.
I actually didn't hate that one. I mean,
I don't hate it.
Archer was a little annoying, but
yeah, Archer is very annoying in this one.
I thought it was alright.
Yeah, so it's the 20th anniversary. So they have a pin for the 20 years of Star Trek Enterprise. I did not realize it's only been 5 years since Star Trek Beyond. I did not realize. So these are interesting to me. So it's 35 years since Star Trek IV: A Voyage Home. It's 30 years since The Undiscovered Country. And it's 25 years since First Contact. I did not realize. So within a span of 10 years, you had Star Trek 4, 5, 6, Generations, and then First Contact. So what is that? That's 5 films in 10 years.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I did not realize that. Plus a show that, just went off the air right before all of that. They're really cool pins. I do really like the yellow, red, and blue background backsplash that's sort of in the shape of, it's behind the Delta, right? The Starfleet Delta. But and interestingly enough, they still use that Delta on Enterprise, which they didn't really have that Delta back then. But anyway, these are really awesome pins, and they're $59.95 for all 7 of them. So you buy 6, you get the 7th for free. Mm-hmm. And if you put that into your cart and use the code DS Pride, all caps, you'll get 10% off that. So that's saving $6 on that pin set. So definitely go check
free
it out.
shipping.
And free shipping in the US, right? Because it's over $30. So definitely go and check out Fansets, and we thank Fansets for being our sponsor of Deep Space Pride and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Thanks, Fansets.
All right, I think that does it, right?
I mean, I think so. I thought that was a lot of talking, but yeah, I think that we covered a lot of bases, unless you had anything else you want to share.
No, I think that's good. That's a good place to wrap it up.
Well, you need to think about next week's prompt/question so that we can continue.
I have a start
series.
for it, but I'm going to refine the
question.
question.
Wait, we forgot to talk about what we're going to discuss in our next episode.
Oh, right.
So we're moving on to season 6. This is rapidly progressing, this series. And we're going to watch Schisms. We're going to talk about Schisms.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a creepy episode, which I like.
It is, yeah.
And I guess it kind of semi-stars Will Riker. At least he's one of the central protagonists that things are happening to.
Yeah, we were talking, and we haven't really focused much on Will Riker in our podcast, so we're going to spend some time talking about Will Riker.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, like, he has stuff to do at least this episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
So that's next time, and we'll have that, and we'll have another Pride prompt.
Yeah,
and we'll see if we get any listener mail.
Yeah, let's hope we get some listener mail.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut